Welcome to Worthwhile Watches. I'm Rob. So, I was browsing watches on Amazon and decided to see, just out of curiosity, what is the cheapest automatic Submariner Homage available. Well, here it is. This is the winner. Uh, Men's Automatic Watches Luxury Stainless Steel Classic Rotatable Bezel Dress Wristwatch with Calendar. So, what happens when you pay $22 for a Submariner Homage? Is this watch really a winner? I mean, how bad can it be? What have I done? So this watch took about 17 days to arrive at my doorstep from China. It was packaged in a plastic shipping bag with the watch taped up in a layer of pretty thin foam packing. Not the most robust packaging, but it was adequate to allow for the watch to arrive seemingly undamaged and functional. The watch came supplied with a bracelet adjustment tool and an instruction sheet, but more on the bracelet later. The first thing I did was to try to set the time. When I went to unscrew the crown, I realized it was not threaded. It has a push-pull crown. The next thing I noticed after pulling out the crown to the second position to set the time is the second hand did not stop. This movement is non-hacking. The second hand will continue to tick away with the crown pulled all the way out. On setting the date, I noticed there is a lot of wiggling around in there when the date wheel turns. But so far, everything seems to be functional, but not super refined. Though this is all as expected for a $22 automatic watch. And now it's time to take all this plastic off and attempt to size the bracelet. Even though I've adjusted the bracelets on dozens, maybe hundreds of watches, I was unprepared for the harrowing experience that was about to unfold. This is by far the cheapest, jangliest, loosest, and roughest bracelet I've dealt with yet. These folded links are very lightweight and crude. The sides appear to have been roughly finished on a belt sander. They make the bracelet on this Casio World Time look like a finely crafted work of art. Anyway, pushing the large pin out with a supplied tool wasn't too difficult, but I did need to use pliers to pull the pins out completely. In the process of removing the pins, both were slightly bent. Actually, there's a good chance they were probably already bent. Getting the pin back in proved to be a difficult, frustrating, brutal, yet delicate chore. Anytime you need something like this to size a watch bracelet, you know you're in trouble. The biggest problem was that the link started separating because the inner portion of the link kept shifting out of place, leaving no room for the pin to be inserted. So the whole link was being pushed apart by the pin. I tried pushing this inner folded metal piece back into place with pliers and holding open the space with a nail, but that deformed pin just wouldn't go all the way through the link without nearly pulling the whole link apart. Finally, I somehow mustered the finesse needed to push the pin straight through while turning it with pliers until finding just the right angle to allow the misshapen pin to seat properly into the link before the bracelet disintegrated into a pile of folded scrap metal. So with that nightmare out of the way, I could finally see how this watch wears. It sits high on the wrist due to the caseback jutting way out from under the case. As for the bracelet, you might think that the crudely folded metal links would be sharp, uncomfortable, and pull hairs, and you'd be right. It's not the most comfortable watch to wear, but it does function, and the dial is very legible. Looking at this watch from a few feet away, it really doesn't look bad. Just don't get too close. I'll go ahead and list the specs here on the screen. You're welcome to pause the video and study them, but you're probably not going to do that. Moving on, let's take a look at the dial. The dial is quite well finished. It's glossy black, but has a sort of streaky texture when looking close up. The texture is kind of inconsistent, so I'm not really sure if it's intentional or not. It has what look like applied indices with metallic looking surrounds and nicely printed minute markers all the way around. The words winner and automatic are cleanly printed on the dial, and the logo appears to be some sort of metallic application and looks pretty nice. The hands look good and appear to be finished quite well. Magnification will, of course, reveal imperfections, but in normal use, the dial looks nice and clean, and I'd say it's this watch's best feature. The Amazon listing says the crystal is hardlex, but I'm pretty sure they're not using Seiko's proprietary mineral glass in this watch. I'm not sure what it is, but it does seem to be some type of glass. It's definitely not sapphire, I can say that for sure. The crystal does get smudged up very easily and appears pretty cloudy unless you really keep it wiped clean. There's no mention of any anti-reflective coating on this crystal, but in my use, reflection and glare really haven't been that much of a problem. The Cyclops is a bit misaligned down and to the left and doesn't magnify much, but it's really not too bad. The bezel, on the other hand, is quite bad. It's a 60-click unidirectional dive bezel. The clicks are a bit soft, and the resistance is not quite smooth and even all the way around. There are some stiff and gritty spots. But the back play is real bad. You can wiggle it back and forth all over the place. But I will say it does line up at 12 o'clock. The insert appears to be plastic. The numbers are quite clearly presented, but it seems to already have some kind of light scratching across parts of it, so I doubt it would hold up very well. The case finishing is not great. The Amazon listing says the case is stainless steel, but this watch seems quite light for a stainless steel automatic at 109 grams, including all the bracelet links. It doesn't seem to have the typical heft of a stainless steel watch. The polishing is pretty streaky and uneven, and the finish on the crown is quite rough. Again, from a few feet away, it looks okay, just don't get too close. The bracelet is similarly finished with brushed center links and polished outer links. The high polish really helps accentuate this deep, rough gouge in this link. Unfortunately, this is not one of the removable links. This is a 20mm bracelet tapering to 18mm at the double push-button clasp. The clasp is, of course, all pressed. It has 3 holes of micro-adjust, and like the rest of the bracelet, it's pretty flimsy with quite a bit of play. The bracelet finish does look acceptable from a distance, and when looking at it head-on, just don't look at the sides. The caseback looks like a screw-down type, but I wasn't able to remove it with any of my usual tools, so I suspect it might be press fit. This watch only claims 30 meters of water resistance, and I definitely wouldn't want to try to submerge it in any depth of water. Back to the caseback. It's an exhibition-style caseback, so now we can feast our eyes on the mechanical movement inside. This is a very inexpensive Chinese-produced movement, but I don't really know anything about it beyond that. Yes, it does look like someone sneezed onto the inside of the caseback, but don't mind that. The skeletonized rotor allows for a clear view of the coarse finishing underneath. Did this movement fall out of a truck and slide across the parking lot before falling into a gravel pit? I guess we'll never know. But looks aren't important anyway. What matters is how the movement is running, right? Putting this watch on the time grapher, we can see that, oh my, what is going on here? Okay, it's not the most consistent running movement, and that beat error of 5.9 is a little concerning, but hey, it's running. I can report that on wrist, this watch seems to be running somewhere in the plus 20 seconds per day range. It's not great, but it could be worse. One of my favorite aspects of any dive watch is the lume. Let's see how the winner performs. There's something magical about the soft glow of lume shining in a dark... Oh, and it's gone. The lume on the dial and hands might not be great, but that bezel pip is really hanging in there. That little pip is definitely the real winner here. So, is this watch a winner in name only? Well, probably. I've been poking a bit of fun in this review, but I have to say the watch does look pretty good from a few feet away, and it does function. Even though the bracelet almost fell apart while sizing, and the time grapher data looks more like random stars in the night sky rather than the consistent straight line of a well regulated watch movement, the watch still somehow manages to keep accurate time to within about 0.02% over 24 hours. So, is this a watch you'll want to wear every day? Probably not. I'm not sure how long it would last if you tried that. If you do want a reliable daily wear automatic Submariner style watch, I'd recommend spending a bit more and getting a Steeldive or Addiesdive or an Invicta Pro Diver. You'll get much better materials and finish, a better movement, and a more reliable and durable watch overall. Not to mention, you'll get a dive watch that's more than just splash proof, and for not too much more money. As for this winner, sure, the finish is rough, the bezel play is sloppy, it came with a large gouge in one of the links, the display case back is dirty, and the movement runs a bit rough and looks like it was finished with 60 grit sandpaper, but it's a functioning Submariner Homage for $22. And wait a minute, could it be? Let's see, $22 plus 6.8% sales tax equals $23.496. 23.496 times 2 equals 46.992. It's true, the math proves it. A 16-piece KFC chicken dinner is $46.99. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more of this type of best of the worst review. Thank you again, and whatever you have on your wrist, even if it only costs $22, make your day worthwhile.